Today's episode is sponsored on behalf of CancerSupportScotland.org. Hello and welcome to Film Pro Productivity, the podcast that helps film professionals and other creative people to live a more focused, effective and happy life. My name is Carter Ferguson and this is episode 35, Developing a Sense of Urgency. Professor of Leadership at the Harvard Business School, John P. Kotter, says, "A higher rate of urgency does not imply ever-present panic, anxiety, or fear. It means a state in which complacency is virtually absent." I talked about a sense of urgency last season in my episode entitled Drive, but for me, it's really one of the cornerstones of productivity itself. John Kotter's quote there says it very well. This is not about panic, anxiety, or fear, although you may have to fight them off a wee bit along the way. It's about killing complacency and replacing it with something else, an inner energy that drives you forward to complete on your plans, to hit deadlines, and to achieve great things. This is one of the productivity terms which I have drawn from the business world, but in all honesty, I'm not quite sure who coined it. It might have been BRYAN TRACY or H. Jackson Brown, but I'm going to settle for John Kotter, as he has literally written a book about it. According to an article written by Annie Sisk for bizfluent.com, in the business world, a sense of urgency refers to communicating to an individual or a team that it's imperative to act promptly, decisively, and without delay. The phrase can be applied in the context of leadership and management, or in the field of marketing and sales. In all cases, the term describes a positive state of mind that smart marketers, managers, and business leaders use to evoke in those they market to, manage, and lead. In the context of the individual, freelance creative, or film professional, we can utilise a sense of urgency in all that we do as we manage ourselves and our careers. Now, I've been really keen to do an episode about this one for a while, and as I'm pulling all of my energy together in creating this new season, the time now seems right. I've been nurturing the sense of urgency that comes with having to create 18 publicly released Season 3 episodes. But even with that proverbial gun at my head, it's been a slow start. Like many other things in the productivity world, it's easy enough to understand the principles, but sometimes difficult to put it into action. Distraction and procrastination, those two ninja-like enemies of productivity, are ever present. The crowdfunding campaign has helped me to focus, and its success has given me new energy, but at the same time, it's been a huge distraction. My mind had to go into a different place entirely to raise the finance, and although the overall experience was very positive and the campaign was successful, I found that switching out of fundraiser mode and back into podcast host mode quite a challenge. But you wouldn't be listening to this show now if I hadn't gotten over it. As regular listeners know, I like to utilise large whiteboards to keep my mind clear and organised. And a few days ago, I tidied them all up and started making daily schedules of tasks specific not only to my season deadlines, but also to roll out the application of the funds that have been raised. My sense of urgency is driven by these lists, and when I feel like taking a break now or find myself being distracted, I can go to those boards to find new things to do. This keeps the momentum going, and that fuels the feeling of urgency. Even this has its problems though, as yesterday I got caught up in a minor task, that of designing a promotional postcard for the show, that ended up taking me most of the day. So prioritising within my lists has now become a primary directive in my efforts. Get your priorities straight when honing your sense of urgency. Today I start, while my mind is fresh and with yesterday's distraction task well out of the way, by working on the podcast first and foremost. Other tasks, Tasks which are perhaps less time sensitive or which require less mental energy are deferred to later in the day. And it's with this system of checklists, prioritised tasks, and a designated timescale for delivery, remember Parkinson's law here, that my sense of urgency is being honed and leading me to success. Probably the most powerful quote about urgency that I've come across is by Martin Luther King Jr., who said, "We are now faced with the fact that tomorrow is today. We are confronted with the fierce urgency of now. In this unfolding conundrum of life and history, there is such a thing as being too late. This is no time for apathy or complacency. This is a time for vigorous and positive action." Our own deadlines and goals may feel less important than that to which Martin Luther King refers, but we can still take energy and understanding from his words. We must fuel our own internally derived sense of direction, motivation, and compulsion to move or act in ways which benefit our lives, our projects, our careers, our passions, and our families. We must also learn to acknowledge those times when we assume an "I'll get to it someday" attitude and combat them. Let's talk for a bit now about why having a sense of urgency actually matters. I'm going to be referring here to the article in bizfluent.com that I mentioned earlier, as I'm not across all of the marketing and leadership applications of the sense of urgency concept. I'll link to it, as always, in the show notes, which can be accessed through your podcasting app. Sometimes they cut them short, I've got to be honest. If you want to see the full show notes, you really should go to the official website, filmproproductivity.com. bizfluent.com says, "There's significant power in employees and customers acting right now. Complacency, after all, is the enemy of progress. A failure to act promptly means that opportunities may be lost. Ultimately, this will negatively affect the financial health of the company. And I'd add to that the financial health of the freelancer too. Thinking of ourselves as businesses is a definite sticking point for some creative people. I say, get over it and live a better life." Lacking a sense of urgency in matters like this often leads to important issues continually being placed on the back burner. If we can learn to be responsive, flexible, and nimble in our ability to evaluate and make decisions about new challenges and opportunities, we can only benefit from it. To foster a sense of urgency, start with yourself. When you understand the why behind a particular goal or objective, and more specifically the why now, you will find it easier to put it into action. The article that I've been referring to makes kind of 3 points. Its first point is that many successful managers and leaders find that increasing a sense of urgency around a particular project or goal is much easier when you get the employees buying in on the project from the start. Fostering a feeling of ownership and investment in the project, whatever it is, makes a huge difference for participants. And if you've ever had to manage a creative team, then this makes a lot of sense. It goes on to say that another proven strategy is to emphasize outcome-based results. Focusing on observable, measurable results helps you identify a successful outcome. This, in turn, means that you can develop an internal sense of reward and satisfaction for completing on a task, which helps you increase your motivation level for the next task or the next project. And this is something that I talk about in some detail in my 4 Disciplines of Execution episode, which was somewhere near the start of Season 2. Take a stab at episode 19. I've no idea. Anyway, finally, this article says you should work to identify the reasons behind complacency in your team or workforce, and of course I'd add, or in yourself. Most people seek fulfillment and satisfaction in their work, and if they're losing their motivation and their sense of pride in a job, then there's something that's contributing to their complacency and diminishing that all-important sense of urgency. If that's the case, it must be identified if you are to move past it. Now, BRYAN TRACY loves this topic, and he's an awesome guy, so I love him for his insight on it. He talks about creating a bias for action. A bias for action, really great term there. And says, most people talk the talk, but never really walk the walk. You need to treat action steps with a sense of urgency. If something is important, then learn to do it now. Don't put things off. Get them done today. So a sense of urgency helps turn someday and later into today and now. And what's that quote, in fact, that I've used here before? Someday is not really a day of the week, you know. It's kind of funny, but it's true. If your bias for action is to put it off till tomorrow, then you need to start reprogramming yourself and get rid of that delaying crutch. Change up your tempo to do something a bit more lively. And as I've warned many times before, don't wait for the planets to get into just the right alignment before you move. If you do that, the right time will slip through your fingers. And build momentum. Remember, it's much easier to keep a body in motion than it is to initiate that motion, BRYAN TRACY, unquote. And another thing is plan your way. Decide on your goals. Develop a list of the action steps you need to take. Prioritise the list. Then execute it. If you do this, then you'll get into what they call a state of flow, when all your senses are heightened and every element of your being is working towards a common goal. Finally, I'd say stay energised. Keep your fitness level up, drink enough fluids, and eat properly so that you can maintain your state of readiness. Your call to action today is to utilise something known as the OWN principle, O-W-N. OWN has you ask yourself 3 questions, and I want you to ask yourself them right now. O asks, what outcome do I want? W asks, why do I want this? And N ends with, what can I do now to achieve my outcomes? That's OWN. O-W-N. Outcome, why, now. One last time. What outcome do I want? Why do I want it? And what can I do now to achieve my outcome? So I'll end today with the words of Bob Proctor. Everyone should have a sense of urgency. It's getting a lot done in a short period of time in a calm, confident manner. Later on this series, I will be doing a mailbag episode, so why don't you utilise this sense of urgency I've been cultivating and make a move to ask me a productivity question that I will answer in that episode. But don't hang around though, as I will be recording it in just a few weeks. You can get in touch via the contact page on the website, filmproproductivity.com, or on any of the social networks. So if you're struggling with something, then I want to know about it. Get your act together and get in touch. For now though, take control of your own destiny, get working on your sense of urgency, keep on shooting, and join me next time on Film Pro Productivity. The music that you can hear right now is Adventures by Himitsu. You can view the show notes for this episode on the official website, filmproproductivity.com. You can follow my personal account on Twitter and Instagram at fight_director, or follow the show on Twitter at filmproprodpod, or on Facebook at filmproproductivity. Please support this show by subscribing, spreading the word, and leaving an awesome review on whatever podcast app that you are using. See you next time.